everybody, it's Emily at Homeschooling, and we're going to have a kind of rambly, chatty homeschool tidbit today. So, I didn't double check, but I think today's episode is number 60, and we're going to be talking about my thoughts on how your perspective changes the longer you homeschool, at least in my experience. So in this weekly video series, I will delve briefly into a topic related to homeschooling, and I'll share some of my knowledge and expertise as a longtime homeschooling mother of 4 children, 3 of whom have graduated high school, 1 who is a college graduate, 1 who will be graduating college this spring, and 1 who is still in high school. So I've been at this for a long time. I want to say I've been homeschooling for somewhere in the realm of 21 years now, and so I feel like I can talk a bit about this idea. Somebody asked me how your perspective changes as you homeschool for many years, and it does change. Like, I feel like the way I was at the start of how we homeschool is very different from how I am now. When I first started homeschooling, I had a 4.5-year-old and 1-year-old twins. And it was absolute chaos in my life. Like, everything seemed so much. And it was really hard. Like, the first few years of homeschooling for me were probably the absolute hardest years ever because I had such small children. I think whenever you're dealing with small children, everything feels harder. And that's not to say that teenagers are easy, because they're really not, but it's just a different kind of hard. I think young children feel harder because it's so much more challenging to get them to cooperate, for them to understand what you are trying to do. Plus, you're new to this. You're brand new to this whole concept of teaching your own children. And it's foreign to so many of us, like, to do that. We weren't raised that way, or at least I wasn't raised that way. My father's a teacher, so he teaches in public school. So, like, it was not a thing. Like, the only people I knew that homeschooled when I was growing up were my grandmother's neighbors. And they were like religious homeschoolers, so they had a large family. They were like the typical denim jumpers. We don't say swear words, and those swear words were things like stupid and dork, things like that. That I was just like, what are you talking about? So like that was the only thing I'd ever encountered, and I'd never known anyone else to do it. So it wasn't even a thing in my head until my oldest daughter was around 3.5, and we started talking about preschool. That's when, like, I started, like, searching out different things, and I stumbled onto the idea of homeschooling and started learning more about it and realizing that it didn't have to be that one thing. But in the beginning, it was very stressful. I was young. I was in my early 20s, and I was desperately trying to, like, be adult and prove myself, and, like, teaching my own children when I looked so young, because and I still look young, but I looked young. Like, people thought I was in middle school sometimes, that Sarah was my sister and I was babysitting her, things like that. So, like, to be in that position made me very uptight. It made me very stressed out all of the time, that I had to do everything perfectly. And I was so focused on, like, doing everything perfectly, being the perfect homeschooling mother, being the best at what I was, like, it was a lot. It was stressful. It also caused me to, like, jump around a lot. Like, we would be doing like textbook type things, and then I would switch gears because I didn't like that, and we were like, that's not the right way to homeschool, so let me try this method. And so we did so many different things. We did classical, we did traditional, we did a little bit of Waldorf, which did not work well for me at all because I'm not very artsy. I did Montessori, which was so stressful. Like, Montessori is amazing, but the amount of work I put in to preparing everything, to creating all of these things, because we didn't have any money back then, and I had to make all of it. Like, I could not afford to purchase all the cool Montessori stuff, so I was like, I can make this. So I spent hours and hours and hours creating all of these like projecty little things, like it was so much. I exhausted myself. So we only did that for about a year before I was like, well, that's enough of that. And then I finally like settled. I would say by the time Sarah was around 10, I felt like I was settling. I felt more comfortable. I'd been doing it for a few years. We found a routine that we liked, and it started to feel a little bit less stressful. Was I still uptight? Yes. I think I stayed uptight for probably the first 10 years of homeschooling. I don't think I relaxed until like Sarah was starting high school and things started to feel less like chaotic. Now, how has that changed? Today, I am definitely not uptight about what we're doing. I feel a lot more comfortable with how I can teach my children. I don't feel anymore like I have to prove myself. I don't feel like I have to be the best. I am not here to be the model homeschooling mother raising the model homeschooling children. And I think that was a big part of my uptightness. Like, I felt like I might be the only homeschooled family that anyone ever encountered, and I had to show them that we were the best. And it's just, you can't. That's not how this works. And I mean, I think I was lucky in that so many people in my life were supportive of it, but I still, even those who were supportive, were still like, so when are you going to be done with this? When will you be sending them to school? Like, you are right. You're not going to do this forever. So that was a big aspect too of the uptightness, I think, was like having to deal with challenges, deal with like, what do people think of me and what I'm doing? And honestly, I don't really worry about that anymore. I think some of that is like hitting your mid-30s and your 40s. You just stop really caring as much as to what people think of you. But I'm definitely less concerned these days with that. I think the biggest change is the fact that I'm not uptight anymore about it. I think I started out very high strung and very much like we have to like write everything down. We have to do all the things. We have to have all this extra busy work. We have to make sure that we are doing all the right things. And now I feel like I know what we're doing and I can just sort of relax and let things happen. So that means like sometimes our work days are not as loaded as they would have been when I was doing this 10 years ago. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm trying to think, how can I explain what that means? Like, I'm a lot more relaxed about what we're doing. I know that reading and discussion go a long way and that we don't have to do lots of other things. Do I think map work and things like that are necessarily busy work? No, but they can be. So I think they can be useful in homeschooling, and I still I include that in Build Your Library, like lots of timeline exercises, map work, things like that. But do we do them every single day? No. We did a timeline for years and years and years, but that's not a thing we're doing right now. My youngest is my last homeschooler, and she requested that we not do a timeline this year. And this is the first time ever that we're not using a timeline. And at first I was like, ooh, but we should. But then I stopped and I was like, well, why? Why should we? Why should we do this? Is there a real concrete reason why we need to do that? Like, we can talk about like what things were happening through discussion. Because like, honestly, my youngest does a lot better discussion based than she does when she has to like do something. So we do a lot more discussion. And we talk about things a lot. We still do writing assignments and that kind of stuff. But like, I've let the timeline go. And that stressed me out for like 5 minutes before I just stopped myself and realized that it's not that necessary. We've done it in the past. We know what that looks like. She knows what she understands the concept of it, but we don't have to continue doing it. So I think that right there is growth. Like that is how I would describe the difference between younger starting out homeschooling Emily and like 20 plus years in homeschooling Emily, is that I was able to just go, sure, yeah, we don't have to do that, and let it go. I didn't have to convince her. Whereas I absolutely would have convinced her 10 years ago. Like, no, we have to do that. That is that's a part of it. So that is a big element, I think, of change and growth. One of the best things about homeschooling, too, is that even though we've been doing this for 20 plus years, I'm still learning with my kids. Like, I feel like the way I've approached history, the way I've approached science, the way I've approached everything has evolved. I used to feel like I didn't know anything, so we had to I was always reading up and researching everything so that I would have background knowledge to give to my children. I do that still, but I feel like now I've been doing that for 20 years, and that has been the best education I could have ever asked for. Just the sheer amount of knowledge that I've built into what we've been doing. Just me learning alongside them, me learning extra things because that was cool. I want to know more about that. And taking it further, because I want to do unit studies for everything. I'm the kind of person that when I'm interested in something, I need to know everything, and I start deep diving. Not all of my children are like that, and I've had to accept it, that okay, that's a me thing. Do I still want to do unit studies for every cool topic we come across? Absolutely. Do I enforce that on my children? No. I only do that when they ask for it, because I've learned that just because I'm excited about something doesn't necessarily mean they are, or that even if they're showing interest in something, it doesn't necessarily mean I have to turn it into schoolwork. That is also a huge amount of growth. Learning to step back and not turn everything into something educational. Just sometimes they can be interested and you can just let them think about it on their own. Let them stew on that. Let them find more books to read if they want to, but not feeling this need, this compulsive need to turn everything into school. So yeah, I feel like the longer you do this, the easier it becomes, the more it becomes just a sort of way of life. I don't think about it, I barely lesson plan. Mostly I just kind of figure out what we want to study and what books we're going to read for the year, and then we just go. We read together. We still do copywork and dictation because that is just a part of life for us. We still talk a ton about what we're reading. We watch movies and we talk about what we're seeing and how it relates to different things that we're learning. We just sort of live this life of literature and writing and study, and it's just part of who we are now. It's going to be weird when my youngest graduates in 3.5 years. I don't know what I'll do with myself. I'm so used to this lifestyle. So that's going to be interesting. I'm glad I have you guys, and I'm glad I have Build Your Library to keep me occupied, because I think I would probably go stir crazy otherwise. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this ramble. I hope that it was coherent. I hope that you got something out of it. Let me know down below if you've been homeschooling for a few years. How have you evolved? How has it changed for you? How has your perspective changed on homeschooling? I would love to hear about it. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Happy reading. Bye!